Hey guys, so today I wanted to show you an example of how I do a tarot reading and go through all the ways that I go ahead and get into the energy and read the cards intuitively. So I received a question from a client, and I do have permission to film this video about the spread. And his question was, why can't he move forward? So he was so tired of he seemed to be afraid of success. Every time he would try to take a step forward, he wouldn't be able to do it. He would self-sabotage, or he would go on another path instead. And so what would happen is he would just end up always standing still, and he couldn't move forward. So the first thing that I want to talk about is how I made the spread. So I like to make spreads generally instead of going with like the traditional Celtic cross ones. And how I will make a spread is I'll sit down and I'll kind of ask some questions about this person's question. I'll be like, okay, well, what does he really want to know? What is helpful about that? What does he need to let go of? What does he need to embrace? What are the next steps? You know, sometimes I'll do, what does this person need to be thinking to move forward? And then I'll also do, what are the actions this person needs to do to move forward? So I'll kind of just like flesh it all out on a sheet of paper and just kind of like get a feel for, okay, so we want to identify this and this and this. And then after that, I will go ahead and I will write the positions out on index cards, and I'll look at them and make sure that feels good. It feels arranged, like it feels like it is getting everything that they need to know. So let me go ahead and show you the index cards I came up with for this spread. Alright, for this spread, the first one was me and my current situation, and then I did my fear or central blockage of being successful. It's funny, I usually write it in first person even though it's for another person. And then position 3 is how fear causes me to see the situation. And then what is actually true about the situation. And these are two of my favorite questions to have in a spread, because it's so enlightening. Because the way that we see something is not the way that it usually is a lot of times. Alright, so position 5, why have I been unable to move forward? How do I remove what is blocking me? Message from spirit, what should my focus be, and then what are my next steps? Okay, so why have I been unable to move forward, and how do I remove what is blocking me? Those felt a little bit kind of like the same question. I included them though because when he formed his question to me and he wrote it, whatever his words were, I can't remember right now, but when I wrote it out, I was like, yeah, I really need to have both these positions. It felt good. So whenever you're doing a reading, you need to just use your intuition as to what the card position should be and how they should be laid out. So just go with the flow and go with whatever your gut tells you, because this is a really right brain activity anyway. In fact, the more you can get into your intuitive right brain and the more you can stay out of your left brain analyticalness, probably the better off you're going to be, okay? Alright, I want to talk about how I moved into this pattern. So when you're reading cards, what I want you to do is pay attention to the emotion. So when the first card is the 7 of Cups and it is reversed, alright? So when I picked up this card, the first thing that came to me was most of his attention isn't on reality, okay? And I heard that in my head. And the reason why I'm telling you that is because when a reading starts, I want you to listen to what you hear in your head, what the impulses are in your body, what the feelings are that come through your body. Everything that you feel, okay, that's part of the reading, all right? And so the first thing that came in my head was he doesn't spend a lot of time in reality. He spends more time thinking about things or daydreaming or in his mind, okay? So that was the sort of insight into this card. That impulse allowed me to almost jump right into the card energetically, if that makes sense. So here's how I think of a card reading. The cards are the door into the pattern, right? So this person has a question and they have something they want to know about. And when someone's asking a question, there's a whole emotional pattern there. So what I'm doing is I'm reading the emotion. So, you know, every single situation that's going on in our life, all the outside structures, underneath that is an emotion. So how I'm going to be able to read the situation is by reading the emotion under it. So here's how I look at it. His question is like layer 1. That is a layer 1 of emotion. That's the one he's able to tap into. I don't know how to move forward. I feel frustrated because I can't move forward. And what was the other feeling? The feeling was a lot of fear. I felt immense amount of fear of unable to choose a path. and unable to walk forward on that path. So there's fear and there's frustration in the question, and it's that I don't understand why I'm afraid of being successful, okay? So that's the top layer, right? So here's what the cards are going to do. The cards are going to let us go another layer deeper. And so it's almost like peeling back an onion, okay? And every single tarot card is going to give us more insight into this pattern. And the other way that I think of this is that, you know, the answer is already there. The answer is already there. So I don't have to, quote unquote, figure out the answer to his question when I'm in the reading, because every single card is going to give me a clue and an answer, and the answer is already there. The answer is already there because it's in his emotional body. The emotional thoughts, feelings, dynamics, and his associations with different things in his life are already present. And so I'm reading the energetic, emotional sort of pattern of this person. The cards are just the doorway to the pattern. And every card is going to give me more insight into that emotional pattern. Because what I'm doing is I'm actually reading the emotional pattern. I'm not really reading the cards, I guess, right? The cards are just the doorway into the pattern. I feel like I'm repeating myself, but I hope that that's clear, right? Okay, so the answer is already there. There's nothing we need to figure out. We just need to be neutral, and we need to allow our intuition to flow, and we need to allow the download to come into our head. And then, you guys, I just want to say this is my favorite thing to do right here, what I'm doing right now. Oh man, I love doing this. I love like teaching people and showing them things and like new perspectives. Oh my God, I'm all about new perspectives. What was I saying? Okay, so you are going to be the neutral channel, and you're going to allow the information to flow through, and you're going to tap into the pattern or the emotional pattern, right? If you're empathic, which I am, I can feel the person's like energy and feelings in my body while I'm doing the reading, and I know how they feel on a daily basis. And I hate to say it, this person feels depressed on a daily basis, and I feel bad for them because I know what it's like to feel depressed. And you can notice that when you're in a reading. Now, this is something else that's very important. The reading, the energy patterns of a person, it starts when the reading starts and it ends when the reading ends. I do not continue to feel whatever the Sam Hill that person is feeling when the reading is done, right? Because I have a life and I have things to do and etc. And so what I do is I start the reading and I open up in service, and then I tell them everything that intuitively comes through for me and everything that can help them as much as I possibly can during that reading, and then I close the reading. And when the reading's closed, it's done, right? And I'm not intuitively walking around with their baggage and their crap all day long, because I can't do that. It makes me an inefficient reader, and it makes my life difficult. And so there is none of that. And I suggest you do the same, right? There's a starting time and an ending time to a reading. Okay, well, there's a starting time and an ending time to reading the energetic, emotional, empathic patterns of a person, right? When the reading's done, it's done. And then you move on, and you're clear. And I have like really firm boundaries in this, so this is really easy for me to do. Additionally, like I work holographically, so I'm not like, here's the way I think of this. I'm not like tuning into that exact person's emotional field. I'm tuning into a holographic representation of it, so that it is very easy for me to just detach and like be done when I'm done, because I didn't really get into the water. It's like I watched a movie of the water. I didn't actually go in the water. I hope that makes sense. That's the easiest way I'm thinking to convey that information. Because if you go in the water, when you come out, then you're wet, and then you either gotta dry off with a towel or blow dryer, or you gotta wait to get dry, right? Well, I just don't go into the water. I just like watch a movie of the water. But watching a movie of the water, as an analogy, is enough for me to pick up all the patterns of the water. I know how water feels, I know the viscosity of the water, and I can talk all about the water for an hour. So, you know, there's no need to actually get into the water / like get into that person's energy field in order to read it. You can just observe it, notice it, intuit it, and even feel those feelings in your body even though you're not in the water. Okay? You know what I mean? It's like when you're watching a movie and you know how the characters feel. You're not actually in the movie with the characters, right? So, yeah, and then I'm done. Okay, so let's go back to the reading. Okay, so the first card was him and his current situation. So what did I tell you I heard first? It was Oh, he spends more time in reality than fantasy. And then the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go into my intuitive body and I'm going to use the intuitive part of my brain. And what comes up for me is that this person spends a lot of time daydreaming and they spend a lot of time thinking about what could be. But it feels like it's almost like it's not real, right? So I'm using my feeling body as I'm doing this. I'm like, what does it feel like? I'm always focused on what's the emotion, what's the emotion. It feels kind of fluffy. It feels kind of etheric. It feels kind of like it's not real. So what this tells me is that in his body, it feels to him like it's not real. His dreams aren't real. Therefore, meaning he feels on some level like he can't have them or they're out of reach, right? So that is the first thing that came up. The second thing that came up was what my attention was drawn to, which was what was in the cups. And this is something that I learned when I learned energy work like 10 years ago. And I'm like way better at energy work than I am at tarot. So energy work, one of the things we learned was that you're going to notice what you notice, right? So if your intuition brings your attention to something, well, you're going to notice that, and then you're going to get curious. So when I was looking at this card, the first thing I noticed in here was the snake. And I thought, oh, that's interesting. And then I noticed the dragon, all right? So that's where my attention is pulled. So that is the second way this card is allowing me to jump into my intuition. All right? So now I'm noticing the snake, and I'm noticing the dragon, and I'm noticing the castle, and I'm noticing the jewels. And I thought, you know what? He doesn't know what he's going to get. He doesn't know if he's going to get something good or get something bad. He doesn't know if he's going to get the snake or the castle or the jewels. Like, he has no idea. And then what my attention goes to is the emotion of fear. So I was like, oh, okay. All right, so that's why he feels fear, because he doesn't know which thing he's going to get. He's afraid to move forward because he doesn't know if he's going to like receive the snake or is he going to receive the castle. He has no idea. All right, so then I notice the feeling of fear. All right. The next card is the Page of Wands, and the Page of Wands has a lot of movement energy, so he, really has a strong desire to move forward, but it's upside down, so he can't seem to, right? That's what I got from that card. All right, which, that pretty much details what his question was right there. All right, the central fear or blockage of being successful. So the first card is going to be this Eight of Pentacles, right? And so this person is working and working and working in order to achieve something. The sun is upside down, so we know that the sun upright means success. So the sun upside down means not successful, right? And when I came to this card, the thing I heard in my mind was, he won't make enough money. That's what I heard in my mind, won't make enough money. So this card upright is money is starting to come, right? But it's a little bit, it's not a lot of money. So upside down, and I'm not saying that it always means this, I'm just saying in this reading it means this. What I heard in my head was it won't make enough money, all right? So he's afraid of not being successful and not making enough money. And then in this card, the kid is doing a lot of work, right? I mean, he is like hammering away on that pentacle. So what this told me is there's a fear here. He's afraid that he's going to do a lot of work and put a lot of effort into something, but then he's not going to be successful and he's not going to make enough money, all right? So that's how I read that, all right? So that is, the main thing. All right. So position 3. All right. Now here's this set of cards, right? Now it's like, okay, well, how do you jump into this energetically? How do you jump into this emotionally? And the first card is this one. It is the Seven of Swords. And what came into my mind was deception, okay? So that's the main feeling. A lot of times if you have 3 cards, find the feeling. Which is the card with the most feeling? That's the way to do it. Luckily, it's this first one here, okay? So here's how I look at cards when they're all 3 together. I don't have to read them first, second, third, although, I do that a lot. But I do read them like a sentence. I read them as they're their own little, world here, okay? Like they're their own little separate reading. And so this card is deception. So my attention, remember when I talked about energy work a minute ago, my attention is drawn to this card first because I heard the word deception. So on some level, I feel like he's afraid of being deceived. So now that I've gotten into deception, now I'm going to notice how he emotionally feels, right? So now I'm going into the energetic pattern that he feels in his body, right? So he feels deceived. He feels like, if I do that thing, it might not be the way that I thought it was. I might be deceived. And now I'm moving over into this card. My attention is drawn to this card next, so this is the one I'm going to read next. It's the Hierophant. The The Hierophant is all about tradition. The word I heard in my head was tradition. So I thought, he feels like traditional things don't work for him, right? So that's how I went from this card to the word authority and to the word traditional to he feels like traditional things don't work for him, because that's what the emotion is in the body. So I brought this card back to the emotional pattern that he feels. All right, so now I'm kind of noticing that the next thing that comes into my mind actually is college. I hear the word college in my head. And so I feel into the word college, and what comes to me is that college is a traditional route that most people take. So then I start talking about that. I'm like, most people do that. They go to college, they do what they're supposed to, they do what everybody else does. It's a very traditional thing, okay? There's no like college card in the tarot deck, right? But I can get to college from this card, right? Because I'm being open and I'm allowing my intuition to flow. So now that college has come into my mind, I'm like, it feels to me like it's this traditional structure, but you don't believe in it. You feel like you're going to be deceived, right? Now I'm in the emotions. These are what his emotions are about this. He's afraid he's going to be deceived. He doesn't trust traditional structures. He doesn't like them. He's afraid it's going to be a bad ending. Now we're into this card, right? So he's associating bad endings and like quote unquote being stabbed in the back with the Hierophant, right? So then I started to go more into the feeling body, and I noticed, it feels to me like in the past, you've done things. You've taken traditional paths before, and they didn't work out. You ended up feeling deceived when you were done. You were like, well, is this all I'm going to get? Right? Like I put all this work in, which brings us back to here. I put all this work in and did all things I was supposed to do. And then I took the path, and I got to the end of the path, and then, so now I'm seeing an image of like a path in my head, right? So and I took the path, and then I just ended up being deceived. It just ended up ending badly. It wasn't what I thought it was, right? It wasn't what I thought it was. It ended up being bad. It ended up being a bad ending. It ended up being just like, ugh, I can't believe I did that. I did all of that, and I didn't get what I thought I was going to get. I was deceived, okay? See how we did that with the emotion? In the next set of cards over here, what is actually true about the situation? So we have the Chariot. And the first thing I noticed with the Chariot is that, you know, he has the ability to overcome this. He has the ability to be successful and feel fulfilled. He can totally do it. He has command. He has control. Right? Notice he's carrying a harp, too. The first thing the harp comes into my mind is following one's own higher guidance. And see how he has stars all over the canopy thing? So following his guidance from his higher self, following celestial guidance, that feels to me like that's what's gonna enable him to get over it and give him the power to move on, right? The Chariot is all about having power and force and like movement, okay, moving forward. So this card, and here's what I do, I just look at the emotion in this card. What comes up for me is he has to look at the deception. He's just got to look at the deception. And I heard that in my head. He has to look at the deception. So by looking at how he has been deceived in the past, it'll end up showing him the truth so that he can actually move forward and he can get all over his emotional shit and move on, okay? So let's talk more about this card. So in this card, you know, she's surrounded by swords, she's blindfolded, and she's roped. Well, if we just take off the blindfold, right, if he just looks and looks at the truth, the ropes are going to fall off and he's going to be able to be free and he's going to be able to move forward. But in order to be free, he's got to look at the deception. So that's the message from this card. And then what this card is so maybe, so we have all the cups in the front, right? So this person has done all the things he should do and it didn't work out and it wasn't emotional fulfilling, and so now he's like walking away, right? And this is the main emotion that I get from this card. So he is like leaving all these so-called quote-unquote things that were supposed to make him feel happy and successful, and he's like moving on. So that is the message of that card, right? Letting go of the things that aren't emotional fulfilling you and moving on, but you'll be able to do that when you look at the truth of the deception, and you'll be able to like actually get movement here. All right, the next position is why have I been unable to move forward? And we have all of these. My attention is drawn to several things. The first thing my attention is drawn to is this, okay? So he probably hasn't had concrete enough plans in order to move forward. This is the card of someone who is a master craftsmith, and he is in a church, and he's like creating this fabulous thing. Usually in other card decks there is a person also with a sort of like blueprint as well. Okay, so he hasn't had very good plans or like some sort of like definitive idea of how to move forward. This card, the next thing I notice is this card, right? Now when I first looked at all three of these cards, or excuse me, all four of these cards, I knew what this one meant immediately, but these three I was like, yeah, I don't know. So I just was like, well, I'm attracted to this one next, right? So just follow my intuition, I'm attracted to this one. What does this one mean? So notice he's looking out in the water. He's looking further afar, right? He's looking past the ships. And then as soon as I noticed that, because that's what's going on the card, suddenly it downloaded into my head, oh, he needs to look for new possibilities and new ways of doing things. He needs to look for new solutions that he hasn't seen yet and look outside of his like current sort of situation and the way he operates and the way he does things. He needs to get references from other people who have done other things and how they did them. So this card is all about bringing in new ideas, new references, new ways of doing things, etc. Okay? Which is perfect for why have I been able to move forward? You haven't been looking at enough solutions and looking farther afield. The next card that comes up is the King of Pentacles. Alright, for the King of Pentacles, what I did with this card is I emotionally moved into it. So I pretended to be the king who's sitting down on the card, and then I noticed what the feelings were in my body. So the first thing I notice is that I feel good. I feel prosperous. I notice that I feel in command. I notice that I feel like I have a lot of skills and I have a lot of things to give. I feel abundant. And out of all of those feelings, the thing I notice is that this person feels like he has a lot to give. He feels like he has so much to give, and he feels happy and joyous in giving those things. So if I move deeper into that emotion, right? I chose the emotion that stood out. Now I'm going to move deeper into it. It feels like I have lots of skills. I have lots of things that I am good at, and I can help other people with them. Okay, so now we've moved deeper into this card. So what's coming through here is that, you know, this person needs to focus on the skills and talents they have and how they can use that to help others, and then they'll make money additionally through helping those other people. So this person might do things like teaching, they might do things like holding a workshop or having some sort of pupil or apprentice. Like, there's lots of different ways this person can get their talents and their knowledge out there. So I would say, because the question we're in is, why have I been able to move forward, right? Well, if he would focus on his strengths and making a living with those strengths and helping other people, it would probably put him in a position of a lot of prosperity, and he'd feel like he was in command of his life, how the king feels he's in command, okay? Now, the next card that came up was the Nine of Swords. The Nine of Swords, she's crying in her bed. And this feeling that the first thing that comes in my head is crying over spilled milk. So in order to move forward, what he should not do is cry over spilled milk. Because it feels to me in my body like, yeah, he shouldn't do this, right? He should let go and release what has happened in the past and focus on. And then my attention goes right back to the King of Pentacles. And then this one, which is the Three of Pentacles, Three of Pentacles, right? So make plans, get a little bit more concrete about what you're going to do, how you're going to do it, flesh out some ideas. And then this one is, you know, you got to start looking at other avant-garde ways of doing things, okay? So for this one over here, you guys, I've got hair everywhere. There we go. How do I remove what is blocking me? I have the Page of Cups, Page of Swords. First thing that comes in my mind when I see these two cards together is he's got to get his emotional body and his mental body on the same page. So they need to be working in tandem. These cards have a lot of energy to them, right? Like, there's a lot of movement with the page energy and a lot of visioning. So as long as he can keep his mental body and his emotional body on the same page, that's going to help him a lot. He has trouble when his mind goes one way and his emotions go the other way, and then he like doesn't know what to do and he just stops. All right, but so keeping them together is a good way to move forward. Wheel of Fortune reversed. So I actually heard in my mind, he can create his own destiny, right? So having his emotions and his thoughts on the same page, it'll be easier for him to create his own destiny. Now, this death card might seem a little peculiar, right? Most people would see that and they'd be like, well, what does that mean? Why is that hanging out there, right? And so the first thing that I told him is what I told everybody when there's a death card in their spread, which is that it doesn't mean death, it means transformations. Let's call this transformation cards. I don't want anybody freaked out. So what comes into my head is reframe. Because the first thing I did was reframe death to transformation when I sent him the reading. I explained, and this is what was coming through for me, is this is really about transformation. It's choosing to see things as a transformation instead of as a death and an ending, right? So a lot of times with death, we're all like, oh my goodness, and we're like, you know, it's this big emotional experience and it's difficult and heavy in our society and all that, right? And so it's like, don't do that. That's what I'm getting. Because, you know, the question is, how do I remove what's blocking me? And what I get from this card is, well, stop thinking of death as this big freaking heavy thing. And it's just a transformation. It's just one thing changing to another state. And having that focus is going to help him to move forward a lot more than looking at things as finite and like done and, oh my God, this is terrible. You see what I mean? So that's how I read that card. So then we have the message from Spirit. And this is where the reading got exciting. Message from Spirit. First one, Magician. You have the power. You have the power to change your reality, and you have the power to move forward. That is the dominant feeling that I got from this card. That's what I felt. The next thing that came up was the Temperance card. And I moved into this card, and I thought, okay, this card is telling him he needs to be more balanced in his approach. He needs to have patience. And then the next thing I heard in my mind was faith. He needs to have more faith. Okay? And so I heard faith in my mind, and then I saw these like bricks, right, in my head. I saw these bricks, and I saw him putting down these bricks. And then it just suddenly dawned on me. I was like, oh my goodness. He needs to forge his own path. He needs to put down his own bricks and have faith in himself. Having faith in himself is going to enable him to create his own path. Now, this is what I wanted to explain about reading cards. I allow my attention to go wherever it wants to go, wherever that is in the reading, okay? So my attention was here. Now my attention is immediately brought back up here. So I'm going to follow that, right? I'm going to follow the energy. So what's coming to me is up here, we were talking about traditional paths. I saw the image of a path in my mind when I was reading these cards. So now I'm like, oh, the traditional path makes you feel deceived when you get to the end of it, because like everybody in society tells you, oh, you're going to get this thing and it's going to be great and it's going to be amazing, but then you go down the path, you get to the end and you feel deceived because it wasn't what you thought it was going to be. And then down here, I'm seeing the image in my mind of him putting down bricks and creating a new path for himself. And he's doing it because he has faith in himself. Before, he had faith in the authority, right? And so that's why when he got to the end of the road, the authority said he should take, like college education or get a job or whatever the traditional like things are in our society they say you should do. That's why he felt deceived, because he had faith in it. He thought it was going to help him. He thought it was going to work, and it just turned into this, okay? But if he forges his own path, which he has to have faith in order to do, it might be a little bit difficult having to juggle things in the beginning, but it will lead to emotional fulfillment. Okay, so this card was awesome because I got the image in my mind of the bricks of him forging his own path. So the message from Spirit is he has the power to forge his own path. He must have faith in himself, not have faith in the authority. Faith in himself, create his own path. Then my attention is drawn to this card, right? Pay attention to other people who have created avant-garde paths. How are the non-traditional ways you can create a path for yourself? Because creating his own path is going to lead him to fulfillment. Having faith in the authority just makes him feel deceived because it leads to a bunch of bullshit and he's not happy. Okay? So he needs to focus on avant-garde ways of doing things. He needs to focus on ways he can monetize his skills and put himself in a place of power. He needs to stop crying over spilled milk, and he needs to get serious about his plans on how to do it. Okay? Now, where should my focus be? Card 8. It is the Three of Swords. Three of Swords is heartbreak. my attention immediately actually is drawn to this card. This card to me feels like it has the most energy out of the 3. So that's another way you can read the cards. Look at them and be like, which card stands out the most? Which emotion stands out the most? Which card has the most energy? For me, it's this one. So the 8 of Wands, they're moving fast. It feels like quick energy, okay? This is the dominant force out of these 3 cards. So what this tells me is that if this comes up, right, you need to get over it and like move beyond it. So this is telling me, don't sit here and cry over heartbreak that's happened in the past and how it's been terrible, da da da. That comes up, you need to focus on moving forward, right? And get out of that crap and don't sit here and wallow in this, okay? So this is what your focus needs to be. If you do that, then you're going to get this, right? You will get not only financial fulfillment, but family fulfillment as well, right? Because there's lots of like a whole family situation going on here, okay? So what are his next steps to solve this? And the world came up. The world came up, which is completion, and it's done. And it felt to me like that on an energetic level. So we have discussed everything that he needs to know. We have gone through the whole cycle of what is important to him, right? Now, one of the things I want to notice about this whole card is that the things that were most important to me that allowed me to give a good reading were the things I heard in my head and the things I saw in my mind. Okay? The cards were a trigger for the things I saw in my mind, the things I heard in my head. Okay? The cards themselves are not magical. They are the door. They are the door to the magic. Okay? They're the door to the magic. They're the door to the intuition. They are a door to all of those things. So when you are reading the cards, notice what you notice about the cards. Be drawn to the emotion in the card. Be drawn to what card stands out the most to you. Go into that card. Notice how you feel, all right? And that will allow more things to come through. And then notice what you see in your mind and notice what you hear in your head. Because the thing I think that allowed this reading to come most alive for me was the vision in my head when I picked up the Temperance card of seeing him laying down his own bricks and creating his own path, as well as the image that I saw when I picked up the Hierophant, which was all these paths that were already laid out for him, okay? So I felt like that really was the golden thing. So the cards are the door to your intuition, and just allow yourself to be open and allow yourself to hear things and allow yourself to notice things and then allow yourself to feel things, and you will have a good reading. And you have to tell your ego to go sit in the corner for a while so that you can be a clear channel for all of your different psychic senses to come through so that you can actually read the reading and help the person. So the recap of this whole thing is this guy can't move forward because he's afraid that... Actually, I'm going to show you the cards and give you the recap. Okay. So, position 1. He feels unable to move forward because he doesn't know what's true and what's not true. He feels all of these emotions and he can't seem to decide. His emotions are screwed up, so he can't really decide what path he wants to go on because he doesn't know if he's going to get a snake or he doesn't know if he's going to get a castle. He's lots of emotional confusion in the body, right? His main fear is, I'm going to do all this work and I'm not going to be successful and I'm not going to make enough money. He's afraid of that because in the past he's taken the traditional path. It's turned out badly and now he feels deceived. What's true about the situation is he has the ability to move forward, especially if he listens to his intuition. But additionally, he has to look at the deception over here and he has to emotionally leave that behind and move on and leave the paths that were unfulfilling and move on up the mountain. And he needs to look at new avant-garde things to do, ways of doing things. So he needs to notice blog posts or notice news articles or notice like whatever. People that he sees on Instagram, Facebook, whatever, that have some sort of like alternative lifestyle or alternative way of doing things. That'll help him. He needs to think about how to monetize his skills in order to make himself powerful and feel fulfilled and prosperous. He needs to stop crying over spilled milk. He needs to get a little more serious with his plans on how to move forward, flesh them out more. In order to move forward, it's going to be key he gets his emotional and his mental body on the same page, and he keeps them on the same page. Then he can create his own destiny, and also, in order to keep moving forward, he needs to not think of everything as a tragedy and see it more as just a transition and be more neutral. Message from Spirit: you have the ability to move on as long as you forge your own path. and you have to have faith in order to put your faith in yourself. Don't put your faith in the authority. You'll be able to create your own path. It might be a little hard at first because you're going to have a lot of things to juggle, but you're going to feel emotional fulfillment. If you feel heartache and tragedy, your ass needs to move on. Don't stay and wallow. It's going to lead to good endings, and you have everything that you need to know. I just told it to you. Okay? Okay, so that was the reading for this person, right? And that was like the whole synopsis. And yeah, okay, so that's how I do a reading. That's what I wanted to show you guys. I'm going to do more of these videos because every time I do a client reading, I'm like, oh, I should put that on YouTube because I really want to explain to people how to read the cards better and how to use your intuition and how to let it flow. And I feel like by you guys watching me, it'll help you to read the cards better yourself, right? It's nice to have a reference for how someone else does it because then you can be like, oh, I can do that, right? All right. Okay, I hope you guys found this super helpful. If you have questions, please let me know in the comments. I love your comments. And yeah, let me know what your insights were, if you would have interpreted the cards any way different, if you saw things that I didn't see, if you noticed a certain theme that I didn't notice, go ahead and tell me in the comments. And yeah, I'm going to do more videos like this because this feels like really fun to me. Okay, I'll see you guys later. Bye.